Max Aitken, Lord Beaverbrook, is the story of an individual who started from relatively obscure means to become one of the major players in the history of the 20th century. I was born 2 blocks from where I grew up. And I wrote my first story in the old man's library, which was where he lived when he was a boy. His father was minister of the Presbyterian Church of Newcastle. For a person like Max Aitken, the house must have seemed very repressive. The word love was never mentioned in the house. And I'm the last one to say that love has to be mentioned in the house ad nauseum, but I think it's relevant to note. I used to sneak here in the afternoons and skip school. It's a good place to go. No one would think a kid jigging school would be in a library. That's where I began my writing career, looking out some of the same windows that Beaverbrook himself must have looked out when he was a boy, skipping school himself. He was always a prankster. He used to sell eggs, for instance, from hens when he was a kid, and one day he took them to a woman who wanted a dozen eggs from his hens, and he only had 6, so he went in and borrowed the rest from his mother. And the next day the woman said to him, "Those are very strange hens because half the eggs were hard-boiled." And Max said, "Oh, I knew the thunderstorm would do something to those eggs," which is kind of right out of, Mark Twain's Tom Sawyer.
Max grew up at the height of British imperial power. London was the center of the world, and Canada a distant outpost. One of its main ports of entry was the Miramichi in New Brunswick.
When Beaverbrook was a boy, this was still a great working river. 3-mast schooners and square riggers would come in from all over the British Commonwealth. And so young Max Aitken's imagination would have been fired by all of this, because he was being taught that he was a part of the British Empire. Now that seems quaint and old-fashioned today, but when he was a boy, this was very serious business. So he felt by this river connected to England.
Young Max was a high flyer. At 13, he publishes his first newspaper. At 15, he articles at a law firm, and by 17, believing he is destined for great things, he leaves the Miramichi.